Hot hatchbacks have become ridiculously expensive as well as ridiculously quick in recent years. But luckily, because they're hot hatchbacks, they depreciate pretty aggressively. So today I'm going to talk about 10 that are on their way to being cheap at some point in the future, in my opinion. 1,000 likes, I'll make the same video again at under £20,000, so do hit like if you want to see that. Subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. We're kicking this video off with the newest car on the list, the almost brand new Honda Civic Type R, which I think is an absolutely stunning hot hatch, which recently retook the front wheel drive lap record at the Nürburgring. That's thanks to its 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, making 324 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.2 seconds, which actually isn't insanely quick, but what it lacks in acceleration, it more than makes up for in performance and handling. Considering it's been released literally this year, we've only literally just seen depreciation of around 2% so far, as these start at £47,000 new, and you'll find used was listed anywhere from around £46,000, of course including multiple spec options. However, look at all previous Civic Type R generations and see the potential for depreciation on these in the next 3 to 5 years. I think these will be excellent value for money in the near future, and right now they haven't got any major issues to run into as well. It's not as aggressive looking as the previous generation, which I also liked, but I love the look of this. It's sleeker but just somehow looks as purposeful from a performance perspective, and the interior is just another step up in terms of modernity, with another nod to the older cars still with the red seats. From the newest car on the list, we now have the oldest, the Renault Megane RS3 Trophy, which comes with the second smallest engine on the list, a 1.8-litre turbocharged inline-4, which is shared with the Alpine A110, meaning it puts out 295 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.5 seconds. In the 6 years since this car came out, it's fallen by an average of 3k per year. As adjusted for inflation, these started at £41,000, whereas now you'll find them sitting at around £23,000 at the bottom end, and typically found for £26,000 or so. This is the 3rd generation Megane RS based on the 4th gen Megane, and it did come with other options too, the most aggressive being the Trophy R, which briefly held the Nürburgring front wheel drive lap record before the Civic took it back. It was designed with help from Nico Hülkenberg when he was at Renault F1 team, and it came with some pretty cool performance features like 4-wheel steering, multiple drive modes, stiffer suspension, and a bunch of modifications to make the car more lightweight. Generally these are reliable too, but the new lightweight battery can pose a few issues. The most recent generation Audi RS3 is an absolute beast, which looks incredibly aggressive with the new Audi stylings, particularly around the front end. On release 3 years ago, adjusted for inflation, you'd get one of these for around £57,000, but now they start at around £47,000, with 50k being a typical price for them. That means annual depreciation of around £3,300 or 5.85%, not actually too bad for RS3 owners. For that money, you're getting a 2.5-litre turbocharged inline-5 engine, which puts out 394 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.7 seconds, making this the quickest car on the list. The hatch is actually named the Sportback, and it also comes a little saloon too, and to be honest, the saloon is probably the cooler looking of the two cars, but the hatch is probably more true to the RS3's history. It's typically understated in its overall appearance despite that aggressive front end, but if your budget will allow, you could even go for the performance edition of this car, as if it wasn't fast enough already, which increases the power to over 400 brake horsepower and the top speed to 186 miles per hour. It's also super new, so no huge reliability issues to shout home about so far. Since Seat split out the Cupra brand to become its own thing, their leading hot hatch offering has been this, the Leon VZ3, which comes with a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which puts out 295 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.5 seconds. These run you around £27,000 at the bottom end now, with most sitting at around 30k. Considering these were around £42,000 on release, they've dropped significantly by about 5k per year on average, so the depreciation is starting to get a little bit more punchy. Think of this as a front wheel drive, slightly less powerful Golf R in many respects. More power from the Golf GTI, but not on the Mark 8 Golf R level. Stick around for more on that though. Regardless, it looks good, and having driven this generation Leon, albeit a less performance Seat example, I can confirm I'm a fan of the design principles and the interiors. One thing I will say though is that the Cupra branding is still cementing itself in the market, so I'm expecting to see more depreciation over the coming years. Again though, it's very new and owners haven't seen too many issues so far outside of some software related ones. The 4th generation Ford Focus sadly doesn't get an RS model, but it does get a nice ST, which came with 2 engine options, the punchier one being the 2.3-litre turbocharged inline-4, which makes 276 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.5 seconds. This is the cheapest car on the list currently, starting at around £18,000, with most sitting at around the 23k mark, but on release release, adjusted for inflation, they started at around £39,000. That means these have dropped by £5,250 per year and by 54% in total, making it the most appreciated car on the list. But that's a great thing for us as potential buyers, as these are actually really good looking cars with great, more realistic hot hatch performance. They definitely are hot hatches as opposed to taking on the hyper hatch class, which means they're more usable day to day and still offer all the fun of a hot hatch. Even if you like an automatic, you can get them with paddles as opposed to the 6-speed manual, and if you go for the performance pack, you get launch control, rev matching in the manual model, and a track driving mode too. Build quality issues are the main cause of upset on these, but the engine is known to be pretty dependable. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't, do hit the like button. As I said, 1,000 likes to make the same video again at under £20,000. And let me know in the comments down below, what is the difference between a hyper hatch and a hot hatch? I've got more on that a little bit later in this video, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Of all 10 cars on this list, this is probably the car I'd personally go for, the Toyota GR Yaris Circuit Pack, which comes with the smallest engine on the list, a 1.6 litre turbocharged inline-3 engine to be exact, which puts out 257 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.3 seconds, helped by the fact that it's all-wheel drive with a nice LSD that comes with the circuit pack. These are now starting to do a better job of depreciating, starting at around £26,000 today, with most sitting at the 30k mark, but adjusted for inflation, these new were £44,000. That means annual depreciation of £6,000. This car caused such a huge hype on release as a super mini hot hatch with rallying pedigree, built alongside Gazoo Racing to meet WRC homologation rules. I've genuinely been surprised at how well these have held their value for so long, and only recently have we seen prices really starting to dip at all. I think this comes down to two things. The interiors are a bit boring and basic, and it's literally a Yaris. To me, that doesn't really matter, but the name doesn't help its case for many people, despite it being in line with the typical win on Sunday, sell on Monday mindset of rallying and not having any major reliability issues. The Hyundai i30N Performance is a lovely hot hatch devised by the man previously responsible for M Performance cars at BMW, and with the facelift in 2020 it got even better looking. Brand new in 2020 it would cost you around £40,000 adjusted for inflation, but today you'll get one anywhere from around £26,000, with many sitting under the 30k mark. So annually that means £7,000 lost, or 17.5% per year, which is the highest rate of depreciation on this list, probably not helped by the relatively recent return to performance cars for the South Korean brand. But still, you get a properly serious hot hatch with a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which makes 276 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.2 seconds, not bad at all. Driver engagement was at the forefront of this car's design, hence it still comes primarily with the manual gearbox and has the very cool shift lights built in, which make it feel like a race car alongside the sportier interior. It's actually one of the more sensible cars on this list too, with a nicely sized boot, 5 doors, and all the luxuries you'd expect from a modern hot hatch. Fuel pumps and loose battery terminals are the main common issues I could find from forums, as well as interior rattles. On to the top 3 now, and in third we have the BMW M135i xDrive from the most recent F40 Generation 1 series. xDrive means it's all-wheel drive, putting 301 brake horsepower through all 4 wheels from its 2-litre turbocharged inline-4, which will take it to 60 in 4.6 seconds. On release in 2020, these were around £44,000 adjusted for inflation, and today you'll find them listed from around £23,000, with most sitting at around the 28k mark, give or take. That means it's lost around £7,000 per year, matching the Hyundai. On release, that larger grille did cause a stir as people ridiculed the size of it, and to be honest, I'm not really a massive fan of it either. However, overall I think it's a good looking car, especially if you give it a healthy smattering of the M Performance parts. As it's all-wheel drive, it got an LSD to get the 4 wheels turning together, as well as the larger brakes and additional rigidity features to get the car handling better and feeling stiffer. And then on the interior, I really think BMW are the top of their game right now, so it is a lovely place to be, with good knowledge that reliability will be fine for a while longer, though some owners do complain about the infotainment. It's hard to make a video about hot hatches these days without including the VW Golf R, and the one built on the Mark 8 is a car that is definitely growing on me since it hit the roads in 2021. Adjusted for inflation, these would have cost you £46,000 on release, but today you'll be looking at spending around the 30k mark at the bottom end, with most at around the £34,000 mark. That means annual depreciation of £8,000 or 17.4%, marginally second fastest in terms of rate of depreciation. But for that money you'll be getting a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine which produces 315 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.7 seconds. What is an absolute violation though is that globally this car only got the DSG automatic, where the US and Canadian markets had the option of a manual. This feels like a step away from the classic hot hatch formula, which is a shame, but outside of that it is a very fast hot hatch with a lovely interior, more sporty exterior features, and of course the option of an estate as well. Taking the top spot in this video is a car often referred referred to as a hyperhatch, even though it's the second quickest car on the list. It's probably given this title because of its 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which makes 415 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.8 seconds, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Is the quicker RS3 also a hyperhatch in your books, or does breaking that 400 brake horsepower mark tip the A45 ahead? Anyway, new adjusted for inflation, these were £62,000, by far the most expensive car on the list, but today you'll get them starting at around £35,000, with many sitting at around the 40k mark. So it's depreciated by a whopping £9,000 per year on average, £27,000 in total, the most on this list, though the rate is pretty average compared to the rest of the cars on this list. Same with the first version of this car, it comes with or without the Aero or ASBO package, though I think the Aero pack does look cooler and is a little bit more subtle than the first gen. It also has a stunning looking interior, but I would mention that many owners have complained about it not being as well put together as it is pretty. And so there you have it. Now those are a bunch of hatchbacks, but what if you wanted to learn about some saloons, some super fast ones to be exact? Well then click up here, subscribe as well down here. Huge thanks for watching, and to the patrons for their support. I will see you in the next one.